I'm Dr. Gene Stevens at the University of Missouri Fisher Delta Research Center, and for the past few years we've been working on a program to help farmers with irrigation management. The whole idea of the program is to make your job easier, because a lot of the problems that farmers have is guesswork of knowing, do I need to irrigate or do I not? Don't want to put too much water, just the right amount. This program works off of the network of weather stations we have in Missouri. We have 38 weather stations around the state. And what we do is, from those stations, we calculate the amount of water from soil evaporation and crop evaporation, or ET, that the crop uses each day. And when it's kind of like a checkbook register, we take deposits or irrigation and rainfall, and debits or transpiration or evaporation from the soil. So we've been using soil moisture sensors over the last few years and collecting yield information to calibrate the program. And the whole idea is to make your job easier. One thing the weather stations do, we know we don't have enough weather stations around the state to have the rainfall amount for every farm, so we're using GPS locations for each field using National Weather Service grid, so that we know how much rainfall that's on your individual field. And also, if you have rain gauges, you can make that even more accurate for the amount of rainfall that we have in the program. So I'll start off with the first step is go to cropwater.org and type that in, and that brings you up to the screen to register the program. Each individual user gets a website location name that's like 32 character, that unless you share that with someone else, that's your website. So you can bookmark that on your cell phone or use your PC computer, either one, to access that. If you have people that work for you that are doing the actual irrigation, you give them that website and they bookmark it too, so they can enter in the irrigation amounts or checking rain gauges during the day. So the first step is, well, if you want to find out about the program, you can click on User Manual, and that gives you more in-depth information about how the program works, and you can print that off and get more information about that. And also the tutorials is actually what we're working on right now. To sign up for the program, you click on Sign Up for New Users, and that takes you to a screen that has the terms of use. And then you read that, and then if you accept that, click that, and then you put your email address and then your password. And that, if you want to go back to your program through the web, you can do it this way. But once the program gives you a specific website identification, you can bookmark that and not have to go through the password process again. That's the reason we have your email. It will send you email, give you that location that your program is supposed to be. Okay, when you come to your program and it gives you the bookmark and you open it up, this is what the screen looks like. Of course, as a cell phone, it's a little bit differently, but it has the same tiles here. The things on the bottom are like tech support. If you want to contact me or someone that works on my staff to you're having a problem, you can click on that. The weather is, a lot of farmers don't realize we have, part of our weather stations in Missouri have every 5 minutes that updates and tells you what the current conditions are. It's useful for spraying and things like that. You can click on that. The field status and the farm summary are things you'll be using every day to check your fields. But what I want to start off with is the setup process, how you go to actually set up your fields to begin with. The first step is you do add field, and you type in your field name. I'll just say test, and then you say find the location using Google Maps. You click on Google Maps, and you see here's the state of Missouri, and you zoom in to our location. Say I want to go to a field, find out here's Wardell. I go up to trying to find Portageville, where I'm from. There's Gideon. Okay, then I start zooming in and I can find, okay, this is the field I'm interested in. So I put a push pin there. I do mark coordinates. That enters in my latitude and longitude. And then you can either, for soil information, the soil is important because it affects how often you need to irrigate. So if you have a sandy soil, you'll need to irrigate more frequently than you would have a silt loam or clay soil. So we need to know that to calculate our trigger, or how often the irrigation based on soil water balance. So you can either do soil texture, sand, silt loam, all that, or if you work with NRCS, you can get the soil mapping unit for that particular field, and there's a lot of them. So you see here, scroll through there, there's close to 8,000. So the field that I have is a Dundee, very fine sandy loam. So I know that's the number for that is 8,020. See. Okay, there it is. So I click that. So now I've got my latitude and longitude, and I've got my soil type. The great thing about this program is you'll only have to do this one time. So, and we've been working on this program for the last 3 years. So in 2014, I entered in all of my fields, and then in 2015 they rolled over to that year, and then 16 the next. So, you know, it's a little bit of a headache to do this first step for all your fields, but you know, realize it's just a one-time thing. So then when you get through, you do submit, and it saves that field. We've added a field, and if you have a lot of fields, you can go ahead and add them all now if you want to, or you can add the field and then go and put the planting crop and planting date information. If you're doing this in the winter months, which is probably good to do this in January or February when you're not doing busy in the farm, you can go ahead and put all your soils and information there now, and then when it gets to be planting time, then you won't have that job to do then. But okay, you've added the field, and you go to set up soils and crops, which is in the right column, the fourth one down. Click on that, and say I've already got a good many fields here, so I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down to Roads Field 4, which is the field I'm interested in now. You select the crop, and here I've got cotton, rice, soybean, and corn. I mentioned about the rice. This is a not flood irrigation rice, but aerobic rice if you're growing row rice, furrow rice, or center pivot rice. Also soybeans and corn are options. So I'm gonna select cotton, and then I put my planting date in, and you can use a calendar to scroll through the months and find the date there. Say I planted my cotton on April 28th. Enter that in. Okay. Most of the time, our fields in Missouri are good soil moisture going into planting, or otherwise you wouldn't be able to germinate the seed. So we need to. I mentioned this is similar to a checkbook register. We start off with zero balance. In other words, our field capacity is a zero balance. You get drier, the number gets negative, you're going to deficit. If you have good soil moisture, go ahead and leave that one 0 inches. Soil depth, if you have a soil that has a compacted layer, say you have a lot of earth moving or heavy equipment, you may have a shallower rooting depth, so you know, it may be 10 inches or 12 inches, something like that. Most of the fields we work with are usually 18 to 24, so I'll leave it at 18 inches here. Then irrigation method, it's either a yes or no, whether it's sprinkler or not. In the program, we allow for some evaporation loss if you're using center pivots or sprinkler irrigation laterals, because the irrigation water as it goes to the air evaporates some, whereas furrow irrigation is a little bit more efficient. So this is a yes or no. I'm saying here this is a center pivot, so I'll say yes. Default irrigation, this is actually a time-saving thing, because most of the time you have a certain field, you're going to put the same amount of water each time. So what the program does, it remembers what you put for the default. So say this field, every time I irrigate, I put 1.5 inches. So then all I got to do is just, say irrigate, push rather than put them out. If you change your mind that day, instead of putting 1.5 inches, you put 1 inch, you can change it then, but this is a time-saving feature for that. So I'm going to put 1.5 inches for that, and then allowable depletion. This is, we don't want to let our fuel tank or our gas tank go empty. We want to irrigate before the crop is in stress. So most of the time we'll allow it to, the soil to deplete to 50%, but we don't want it to get any drier than that. Okay, like if you have rice though, and you're going through a pivot, most people don't want to let it stress even that much, so they'll set that number to 30%, say. But for most row crops, corn, soybeans, and cotton, we'll put that at 50%. And then this last feature here, yes or no, rainfall. This is the National Weather Service. What you want to know is you want the Weather Service to automatically or just automatically put what the National Weather Service said occurred, the rainfall at that field. You can always override that, so you can put in the actual amount, but I recommend most people leave that yes. So the most important thing if you do that is then push submit, and that saves that. So I'll go back to the setup, back to the main menu. Now I will tell you one thing, a lot of people, you go to all this work of doing this and getting it all set up, and then you go up and start looking at your field summary or farm summary, and it says inactive. You thought, man, this program is messed up, or I've done something wrong or something. It takes about 24 hours for our server in Columbia in Munford Hall to access all that latitude and longitude from the National Weather Service and set your fields up. So at this point, I would recommend do all of your fields and stuff, and then come back tomorrow about this time, and then everything will be running correctly at that point. So have a little patience here. So or don't wait till the last minute to do this right before you need to irrigate. 24 hours have transpired, and now you're back at your computer. I mentioned that probably at this stage, or when you're actually using the program, a lot of people will use their cell phone instead of the desktop or computer. And you can do everything we've done on your cell phone setting it up, but it's usually more comfortable with your keyboard and all to do it that way. But the two top buttons, or the ones you probably use more often, are field status and farm summary. And different individuals have preference. You can get the same type of information from each one. It's just a different style or different way of looking at the situation. And I'll bear in mind, right now we're at the end of the season, and most of our crops are already mature. So what you're seeing right now is not exactly what you would see in July or June or something like that. But okay, we'll start with the field status. The way you navigate between fields is if you're on your cell phone, you would just use your finger and go from the left and go to the right, like the swipe like that. If you want to go the other way, you go backwards and forwards to go between your fields. Okay, this is a field back in June, cotton field that shows kind of a typical situation here. We've recently irrigated actually today, and so now we've got showing that we're close to field capacity again. But the chart right here shows you over the past 4 weeks what's occurred last month. You see about 3.5 weeks ago we had a period where we got some dry weather, and it got below the red line. The red line is your trigger, which is based on your rooting depth, soil above water holding capacity, and allowable depletion. So what we're trying to do is stay above this red line. You see that we irrigated and brought it back up again close to field capacity, and then it started drying again. And then we had some rainfall irrigation, brought it back up again, and then went back down again, and then now we're irrigating again. So you try to stay between the lines, stay between the red line and field capacity. And you can swipe between fields. And the way the program works is that the driest field comes up first, so it sorts it automatically. So you're more interested in what you need to take care of rather than fields that are wetter that aren't needing to be irrigated right away. So well, this field right here is a good example of what happens if you get behind. We had a field day last week, and so we were behind on irrigation because we were doing the preparation for that. You can see that we've irrigated since then, but we haven't got back up to our red line. Our red line, remember we entered a soil information. Your trigger is your available water holding capacity times your rooting depth times your percent allowable depletion, which we set at 50%. So we had a Dundee silt loam, whatever the Natural Resource Conservation Service says is available water holding capacity for that particular soil, times rooting depth is how much reserve water you have in the soil. So at that particular case, the trigger we have is right at 1 inch, 0.98. And so what we want to do is try to keep our soil moisture or soil water balance above that red line. And most of the time we do, but in this case we got busy and got behind, and now we're trying to irrigate to catch up again for that. The other way of looking at soil water balance is a farm summary. And see, I've got a lot of fields here that we're late in the season, and it's really not practical for our cotton fields to be watered this late in the season after the 15th of August, but it is dry. The way this program works is it gives you a warning period to kind of give you advance of when you need to irrigate. So I got, this is Monday today, and it goes all the way through next Sunday. So you can look ahead, and the one red asterisk means it's 70% of that trigger. In other words, you got 30% that you're not quite there yet, but you will be soon. And then two asterisk is 80% trigger, 3 is 90%. And then when you have all these red X's, it means you need to be irrigating right now. Okay, this is a screen grab from the middle of the season, which is more typical of what you kind of situation you might expect. You got, these are, half a dozen fields that I've got here, and this is on a Tuesday. It's showing that this field, which is center pivot irrigated or fur irrigated rice, needs to be irrigated today. It's got all red cells with white. This soybean field, it's got 2 red asterisks by it. It's not critical yet at that point that it needs to be watered, but it's right at it though. So you say tomorrow, Wednesday, you need to irrigate this cornfield, and say we've just recently irrigated that because it's showing the water balance at 0. It's showing okay all the way through. And if you scroll the screen over, you can see that what it shows for the rest of the week. If you're on a desktop, it shows the whole week there. And these right here, it shows they're not needing to be irrigated through Thursday, but in this case, Friday, it was going to need to be watered. So it kind of gives you a feel for kind of the scope of how the program works in more of a typical situation. To kind of explain how you go about irrigating or enter in the irrigation, is you go to Add Irrigation or Rain, which is the second button on the right side, and you select the field. You go through your fields, and I'll say Marsh Field 1. Then you go, and this screen brings you up, shows you field precipitation or rainfall, this light blue, then it has a light green, which is irrigation. You have your National Weather Service rainfall when you haven't had any rain in the last week. But say it rained ½ inch yesterday, but the National Weather Service didn't realize that. So you click on that button, you go up here and you type in 0.5. Okay, and as a time-saving thing, say not just that field, but several other fields in your farm also got that irrigation. So you would check the boxes of those fields. So and then you push submit, and then that would automatically enter. And that way you don't have to go in each one at a time to do that. Okay, it didn't actually rain yesterday, so I'm not going to submit that. But okay, the same way with irrigation. So today is Monday, September the 12th. I click on the green box associated with that, and I had it. Remember earlier I talked about the default irrigation. In this particular field, I put 2.5 inches as for irrigation. So if I had a different amount of that, I can go in and change that. But if every time I irrigate, I'm going to irrigate that same amount. It makes it easy. And the same way here, if there's other fields on today that I'm going to irrigate the same amount, I would do that. If you want to look at, say you got behind, and you want to look at farther back than that, you click on all days, and you can see all the days from the very beginning. You see this is what the National Weather Service said that we would have, and this is what we have. I will mention that the National Weather Service, their rainfall 24-hour period is not midnight to midnight. They go by Greenwich time, which is England time, which is 6 hours different than ours. So kind of the background behind that is Weather Service people used to go out and record weather data early in the morning, like 6 or 7 o'clock. So that worked really well because that was the time they were doing the recording anyway. So if you're looking at it and say it rained at 2 o'clock last night, you heard a big thunderstorm, and it's not showing that it's showing up in the National Weather Service thing. That may be the reason why. It's because their midnight to midnight is different than ours. Go back to my main menu. Okay, another feature of the program is crop stage. Bear in mind that we're at the end of the season now, so everything is close to maturity. But what we have is in the program is we're using growing degree days, DD50s, DD60s to predict the size of the crop, because that affects a large canopy, a large crop evaporates more water or transpires more water than a smaller crop. So we're calculating that anyway. So what we've done now is we have, like in case of cotton, there are emergence, first square, first bloom, open boll, and harvest. Say I want to say here open boll. At this stage of growth, I'm concerned about cutout, last effective flowering date, stop irrigation mid-August, leave fields wet. Physiological cutout is 5 nodes above white flower. And then they have some other links here for other University of Missouri websites, diseases, weeds, insects. So if you're interested in like in the case of soybeans or corn or whatever, we're developing recommendations for different growth stages so that the farmer can scout, which is not part of the crop water part, but it's a sort of a tool to help you know when to be looking for different things in that time of the season. And then finally, some of the other buttons we have, field detailed. I'm not going to go into that too much, but if you're really interested in the way the program calculates things, you really want to know how the balance sheet is working, you can go into that. The National Resource Conservation Service now is using ET-based irrigation scheduling as a conservation incentive program where you can actually get paid in some cases, depending on what watershed you're in, for using this program. And at the end of the year, you need to document that you've done the program. So you would click on report and then find the field and say, I'll just pick one, say Marsh Field 1. And it shows you on the screen here all all the different irrigations and the status of the field during the season. So you could print that off on your printer and then put how many acres you had on that field and turn that into NRCS for the program if you're involved in that. Other one is tech support. Basically, you go to that screen and it gives you my contact information, my email, phone number, and these are some other instructional videos. And then weather. Here I'm located close to Portersville, so I show the weather station here. And you also click on mobile version, and it gives you max min temperature, precipitation today and yesterday, and even gives you a forecast, for the next week. So these things are kind of supplemental to the main program, which is the crop water use app. Okay, that gives you an idea or overview of the program. Of course, it's like anything else. You have to get into it and get some own experience in like swiping your finger on the phone and things like that. Like I mentioned earlier, different people have different preferences, like whether you use field status or farm summary. I will mention that the farm summary, one good thing about that is, one of the features we're adding to it now is we have it where you can print it out, and so you have someone that works for you, and he's not tech savvy or used to using cell phones or anything like that. You can print this out and say, okay, these are the fields on my farm that I know need to be irrigated today, and it's showing that if we don't get any rain, that these fields need to be irrigated on Wednesday. So it kind of helps you plan ahead, and also say your wife and kids, you're thinking about going to the lake this weekend, and the program is showing you need to be irrigate Saturday or Sunday, so you could go ahead and irrigate Friday, so you won't be surprised and get behind. Because one thing you see with this program, once you get behind in your crop, it's hard to catch back up again with irrigation. So, and it's a program that's, like I said, we've been working on it since 2008, and we're still working on it. And the growth stage feature is something we added this year. And there's a lot of things we're talking to. As farmers talk to us and tell us how they like it or what things we can improve on it, we get a feedback from them, and we already have some ideas for things we're going to do for 2017. So, thank you.